All right, it's 7 o'clock and we like to start the show on time, so Mark, take a seat and
shut up.
There'll be time for visiting answers. I talked to the security department and they said as long as we're out by 11, we're okay. The film festival won't take that long, but maybe the visiting will. So I heard the other day somebody was talking about life, and they said life is a beautiful collection of temporary experiences. And I'm the temporary instructor in the videography program this year. My name is Kieran Moore, and I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for coming. I've had the privilege of working with these students since August of 2021, while Mark Ambrose, who's here tonight, has been on sabbatical. Mark is the permanent instructor of videography here at Central Lakes College. And so on behalf of myself and Brent Balmer, our lab assistant, and Mark, our dean, Rebecca Ailbrock, the college president, Hera Charlier, who's watching remotely, I'd like to welcome you all to the 2022 Central Lakes College Videography Film Festival. Wilbur Wright said it's possible to fly without motors, but not without knowledge and skill. And the Greek philosopher Aristotle said, the aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. And so I feel like my job these last 9 months has been to help the students develop their art and develop their knowledge and skill in videography. And the films you're going to see tonight represent their accomplishments. What we're going to view tonight are the result of those efforts. And since their first camera operations course that Mark taught, which I think was remote due to COVID-19, these students have really been through a lot. But now we're fully in person. Most of the time we're not wearing masks and we're all working hard. And I want you to recognize that the films that the students created tonight were done, they all have jobs. And they're all full-time students. So they don't just have work for this course. They have work for all their other courses. They have their jobs. They have their families to take care of too. But they still finish their film projects. Some of them late this afternoon, but they're done. This morning when we met at 9 o'clock, I reminded them if we don't have films, we can't have a film festival. And so we got it in the gear and we got it finished today. But these films are going to show off their skill as shooters, writers, editors, and creators. I think, well, thank you. So without further ado, it's my honor to present the film festival featuring the art and skill of Justin, Jay, Kevin, Kyle, and Mckenzie. Hit it, Brent.
Crap.
Remember, we got a big test on Friday, and I hope you study hard, come prepared. You too. I expect my students to be on time, Jesse. If you continue down this path of tardiness, I'm fearful that you will fail the class. I hope this serves as a fair warning.
I know, but Mr. Pending,
I don't need any excuses. I want results. Get with it, man. Well, you've taken enough of my time today. I'll let you get out of here. Study hard. You don't need it.
Well, at least I get the day off.
Now listen here, folks. A spin on the movie Groundhog Day comes Resurgence of Phil, a sequel, in theaters now. Purchase your tickets today.
This thing might do.
Then he turned himself into a pickle. Funniest thing I ever seen. No.
Night, Jesse. Don't forget to turn your alarm clock back tonight. It's daylight savings.
No worries. I got this one here for free, actually, this morning. Accidentally broke mine this morning.
Dude, that thing looks like it won't work to save your life.
I think it'll work just fine.
Whatever, man. Oh, hey, I got you a job interview for Sunday. You're gonna work with me now.
Sweet.
Don't miss it.
Okay.
And just another thing, it's not really my place to say, but you've been slacking off a bit lately, and I don't know, just think about it.
Okay.
Alright. I'll see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
last day. One more day till the weekend.
Hold up.
Did it again?
How did I get a bad score? How is it Saturday, too? This makes no sense. Oh, hey. I heard you got the job yesterday. Congrats. Oh. They even gave you a uniform, huh? Looks really good on you.
Joe, I don't have the interview till tomorrow.
Jesse, I really don't get your sense of humor sometimes.
Honestly, Derek, I don't know what's happening to me. It's like time is moving without me knowing.
Jeez, that movie Saturday we watched must really mess with your head, man. Well, anyway, I'll catch you later.
Derek.
Either I'm having severe memory lapses, or I'm skipping forward in time after I fall asleep. In both cases, I think a doctor would be fascinated by this development.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good movie, but it's pretty cliche. Like, the main character falls into this time warp situation and needs to fix his life. I mean, like, who writes that crap?
Hi, Professor Pending. I know I royally bombed that test, but I was wondering if I could maybe retake it tomorrow. I know I really haven't been the best student, but I'm really trying to improve. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to me. I promise I won't make you regret this. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, you doing okay? You look like, well, you don't look good.
Yes. I'm okay. Can I start the test now, please? Thank you. Stupid! Ah!
You doing okay, man?
Peachy, Derek. I'm doing great.
Yeah, I can see that.
So,
What's going on? No offense, but you've been acting really weird lately.
Derek, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me.
I mean, I can listen at the very least. What's the deal?
So, strap in because this is going to be a long and wild ride. Over this past week, I've been time traveling. Please hold your questions until the end of the insanity plea. Since last Thursday, I have been skipping days, asking what happened yesterday, and I have no idea. To me, it just feels like it went from Thursday to Saturday instantly.
Well,
I'm still not done. I'm a husk, designed to live out the rest of my life, not knowing what I did the day before. I've tried to fix my life. I retook my test. I stayed up all night studying. I even showed up early. But I'm still trapped. Still trapped!
so didn't.
Hey, damn it! Shut up! I'm not done! I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just... This past week has been so confusing and I don't know if I know how to deal with it. You can speak now.
So, I don't know if this is a stress thing or if you're making all of this up, but let's entertain the idea that you're telling the truth. You said all of this started happening last Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the day you brought home that weird clock?
Yeah?
So why don't you just get rid of the dang thing?
Derek, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
make you skip this?
Yeah?
Like that.
Yeah! See you later, alligator. Actually, never. Never see you. Jesse Slowson out! Let's go.
Wow, isn't this a big surprise? I think this belongs to you.
All right, well, the interesting thing, you may have heard that film was nominated for a Student Production Award by the Upper Midwest chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And when we went down for the award ceremony, one of the things we learned was they have over 1,000 entries, and the nomination is an award in and of itself. In every category that they have for these student production awards, they don't choose nominees for each category each year. And there's no limit to the number of nominations, but only typically a few films reach the point of earning a nomination. And so it's a great honor for this film that these students created to be nominated. And Central Lakes College was one of only 3 community colleges in the 5-state area to receive a nomination for any student work. Most of the nominated films in the college category were from 4-year colleges, so that's a real feather in the cap for these students. And I've said it all along, but I want to reiterate, this was a student production. Brent and I were there, we were along for the ride. I was the safety officer, make sure no one got hurt. And Brent helped with some technical details, but it was the culmination of our advanced camera class. It was a group project from the first words that Jay put down on the script, in a shared Google document that we worked off of, to the last shot that went in the can, shot over at Kyle's house. It was all done by the students, collaboratively. Everybody had some shots that they were running the camera for that made it into the final cut. And the goal was to try and use all the camera techniques that we had learned and discussed and practiced in the class, from the drone operation to the booms and the floating cameras, and trying to find that interesting angle and compose an interesting shot, and then couple it with a script and then editing. And each student edited their own version. There's really 5 or maybe 6 versions of this film floating around. This was Mckenzie's edit, which was the one that we entered in the film festival. But it's fun to watch the other versions because each one is a little different and represents the skill and art of the editor. So now we're going to move into the Capstone Films that each student has created. And as it says in your program, the Capstone is their final for this class, really. It's sort of similar to a thesis or dissertation, and they're putting everything they have into it. And before we see each creator's capstone project, they have each created a short, we call it an autobiography, to sort of introduce themselves to you, give you a little window into who they are and their creative ideas. And the first capstone film that we're going to watch is from Kevin Porter. Kevin and his family is here, and he had some unique challenges getting his project finished because Kevin's family has a brand new baby who is in attendance and winning the award for the youngest attendee at the CLC Film Festival ever. So congratulations. But so anybody who's ever had kids knows it's a lot of late nights and being up all night and not really sleeping well, even when you do sleep. But nonetheless, Kevin was able to complete his capstone, and we're going to watch it now. I hope you enjoy it.
After working at taxi for about 3 years, I found another job. Won't say the name. But got fired from there. So then I figured, oh, maybe I can go to school. So what do you like? I like entertainment. So I looked at mass communication and like, that sounds fun. And so after that first semester, then my second semester, I went and talked to Mark about a work study for the videography program. You know, he's telling me all about it, and he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, radio or something about communications. And he's like, you know, like, due to my age, and I was not offended when he said and all that, dude, you know, I could get a job before I even graduate in this program. So that sounded appealing. And so he twisted and he twisted my arm and said, go, you have to go. No, just kidding. Made it sound so exciting, and just his enthusiasm for it just made me like, okay, I'm gonna change my major to videography. So did that, finishing up my last semester. My most favorite parts are probably the editing. I'm working with the Adobe Cloud system program that, you know, like After Effects and, you know, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and, you know, I love it. And I can't wait to start my career. juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. It's what I was diagnosed with when I was 10 months old. Now, the point of my story is not to have you feel sorry for me. It's a story of how I persevered over JRA and the effects of it. One way I was able to deal with my disability was that I had parents that did not coddle me. They gave me chores like mowing the lawn and washing dishes. By having me do chores, it instilled in me confidence that I could do things like every other kid. JRA, in most cases, affects only one or a few joints. In my case, though, every joint was affected, and in this bone scan, you can see the affected parts are lit up bright white.
First, I remember that they accused me of helping you break your leg. Your ankle just swelled up like a big balloon, and you had just started walking. Then your other leg started swelling up. Before you could really communicate what was going on, you were in lots of pain and just cried a lot. You were just one big swollen mess. I remember, I don't know how old I was the first time I heard it, that if you were to stay on the amount of medication you needed to control the swelling, that you wouldn't live to be 18 years old. So I had to do a research paper, and then I had to give it a 30-minute talk. I wrote a paper in college, and then in physical therapy school, I did my main research project on JRA, where the main focus of my speech, I didn't quite make it all the way through it without getting emotional, but that it's very rare in boys. It's like 2-1. Pain and yet had a smile and happy and didn't want to help. I mean, from early on. So. Kids calling you, weird walker, from very early that you started even going to school. Just how something with a body part you could control, like your eyes, or something to make people laugh. Actually, in all your pain, you were making people laugh.
So, what does arthritis do to the body?
Treats synovial fluid as an enemy of our body and attacks it.
To the podium, and what we want to do after each capstone plays is have the filmmaker come up, and if people have questions or comments to share, feel free to ask.
I could not.
else about the film you want to tell us, Kevin?
Oh, don't put me on the spot. I was expecting questions. I don't know. Just it was very hard to do to having a family and a baby. It's just it was hard. And then the more time it got closer, I'm like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this. Like I work better, I guess, under pressure, maybe because my juices get flowing, and I'm like, but then when I got it done, I'm like, not happy with it. But my first thing, so it was very fun, and actually the autobiography wasn't the one I thought I gave you. I'm like, that's not the right one. Oh well, okay. You guys got the point, I think. So,
Any questions?
yes.
Thanks for sharing your story, Kevin. And then what's your dream job coming out of this program? If you could pick anything without anything holding you back, what would you do?
So, it's kind of a loaded question. I did at first kind of wanted to be on camera, I wanted to be like an actor, whatever. But having my disability, it kind of humbles you, and me not being too confident, I'm like, well, I think I could be happy, editing things, like I said, on, just commercials is probably a main thing that I would like to do, because, everybody hates commercials, but at the same time you love them because how witty some of them are. So that's, I just am always thinking either of jokes or like what I could do with a commercial, so stuff like that, or editing movies, that'd be fun, putting my own spin on it. So, anything else?
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, getting to know you, that wit that he talked about is what he's got. And if you can take that and turn it into whatever form of media that you're doing so that other people get to see it through whatever your medium is, that would be the best thing because it works.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
That was your brother you interviewed in the video, right?
Yes, sir.
What was it like interviewing your brother for all that stuff?
Interesting. I did not know that he was blamed for. There's a little bit more that went into it. It's just I didn't get it in, but yeah, I guess he supposedly pushed me down a step or whatever. That's how I got swollen. But then I talked to my parents, and they're like, we didn't blame him. And it was just funny to see how kids look at things differently because maybe they said something and he took it the wrong way. Like now having kids, I'm like, okay, they hear things differently. I did not say that. Yes, you did. So, I thought that was very interesting. So to him, he thought he got blamed for it. So, but yeah, listen, love my brother to death. He was a great brother, or is a great brother.
Died after the interview.
Anybody else?
You mentioned you like the editing part.
Uh-huh.
Can you plow through it? Just find it interesting how you guys get through the editing, or do you have to step away sometimes and refresh yourself?
Oh, it takes me millions of hours. You would, yeah, just like a 1 minute piece, 30-second piece can take forever. Especially if you gotta learn not to be a perfectionist, but that's not me either. You can always do better. It's just like, okay, it's just so much. It's really hard to It's fun though, time consuming, but fun. If that makes sense. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am?
Your motion graphics were really incredible. Did you animate all of that yourself?
No, it's found some. I didn't write it. Is that what you're asking?
I'm just curious about the whole process because
Well,
you
you-
draw well.
No, I wish. If I would have had time, I would have had my son do all that. But you just find things to help you visualize what you're trying to portray. And you can find things on the internet that are free, or you pay for, and I found it's something called Doodle, and so that's where I found the doodling part, and I thought it worked out good for me, so.
Yeah, really kind of good story.
Yes,
Kevin, I don't have a question, but a comment.
yes.
You mentioned lack of confidence.
Uh-huh.
You don't have lack of confidence. Take this and move forward. You did a great job with everything that you're under right now.
Thank you, dear, appreciate it.
All right, well.
Thank you, guys.
Feel free to get up and help yourself to more cookies, coffee, and lemonade. We're kind of informal around here, so you can get up and walk around if you need to, or get up and stretch. Our next creator is Kyle Strecker, and I've talked about how busy everyone is. Kyle, in addition to being a student, having a job, he's also a baseball player for Central Lakes College. He's a pitcher on the team, and the baseball team travels a lot. So, and I don't think you can add it on the bus, can you, Kyle? So, really puts pressure on somebody when they're a student athlete too, to be able to do all your other classwork and keep up with all your obligations. Kyle comes from Mamia, Minnesota, and he has an interesting story to tell. He can be seen in the cafeteria at lunchtime often with Justin, another member of our program, and they're playing different fantasy games. And that's the subject of Kyle's Capstone. So let's roll the film and learn a little bit about it.
How did I end up here? Here's the thing. I never saw myself doing videography. I always grew up as a sports kid, playing baseball, basketball, football, all through junior high into high school. But I took a chance on making some dumb YouTube video in my dorm room a couple years ago. And yeah, figured out I really liked editing. Thought it was fun, making content for something just to make people laugh. Definitely my skills have gone way up, but I don't know. I never saw myself here, but I'm glad it's worked out.
Shadow grows on the wall behind you, swollen and burnless. It is almost here. What is it?
What if it's the Demogorgon? Oh, Jesus, we're so screwed if it's the Demogorgon.
It's not the Demogorgon. An army of troglodytes charge into the chamber.
Troglodytes told you.
Dungeons and Dragons, a legendary tabletop RPG that has millions of players all around the world and has been making push into mainstream media in recent years. But it wasn't always like that. When Ernest Gary Gygax and David Arneson were at Gygax's house in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, they decided to make a game that anybody could play with just a simple rulebook and their imagination. So they did exactly that. They started the creation of Dungeons and Dragons and went as far as to have game designers and Gary Gygax's own son help beta test the early editions of the game.
People would come over and play, and they were game designers and stuff who worked with my dad, with a weird mix of neighborhood kids too.
It wasn't all smooth sailing, however. Once they had finished the original version, not one company was willing to take it on. So, As you do, Gary Gygax decided to create his own publishing company called Tactical Studies Rules, or TSR for short. TSR sold 150 copies of D&D in its first month, and by summer, over 1,000. This success led Gary to become full-time game designer for D&D, and over the next 10 years to go from being a self-employed cobbler in Wisconsin to living in a mansion in Beverly Hills. During the peak of its popularity, Dungeons and Dragons found itself with one massive enemy: the church. Take a look at this image behind it. What do you think these people are doing? You say satanic worship? Well, you'd be right. These people are just playing D&D. But during the time called the Satanic Panic, Catholic churches believed that D&D was a form of Satanism. They claimed this because they said that you were giving up your free will to the DM, which, if anybody watching this plays D&D, you know that's not how it works. Most of the time, the DM is a person with least amount of power, and the players basically get to do what they want. Dr. David Waldron, author of Role-Playing Games and the Christian Right, Community Formation in Response to a Moral Panic, says, since fantasy typically features activities like magic and witchcraft, D&D was perceived to be in direct opposition to biblical precepts and established thinking about witchcraft and magic. There was also a view that youth had an inability to distinguish between fantasy and reality.
It's all imagination.
Is it?
Due to this misconception that players couldn't tell the difference between what was fake and what was real, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of teen suicides that were blamed on D&D, even if the child had never even played the game.
The parents were actually saw their child summon Dungeons and Dragons demons into his room before he killed himself.
After the Satanic Panic seemed to have cleared up, Gary Gygax was forced out of TSR, the publishing company he started, and it was then bought out by Wizards of the Coast, who were looking to expand after the recent boom of success from their hit game, Magic the Gathering. A huge resurgence took place after that deal went through, thanks to a new edition of D&D and an intro story published by Wizards of the Coast, partially written by Gygax himself. Thanks to the new edition and the new story, new players were flooding into game shops to get all of the different content that Wizards of the Coast was producing for D&D.
Attention, the dragon tribe! Wow, neat!
Give me a break.
What's happening?
The first push to get D&D into mainstream media was when TSR, Toei Animation, and Marvel Productions all came together and made the first ever D&D cartoon.
Barbarian, magician, thief, cavalier, and acrobat. What then? That was Venger, the voice of evil. I am Dungeon Master, your guide in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
But what if I told you that in 1982, a very young Tom Hanks starred in Mazes and Monsters, a D&D live-action movie that was meant to demote the game rather than to promote it?
I have spells. I'm going to fly.
You don't have enough points. I am the base controller, and I have absolute authority in this game. Game?
JJ, what am I doing here?
The movie was made in the middle of Satanic Panic and was very obviously trying to avoid copyright claims from TSR and from Gary Gygax himself. More recently, Stranger Things has been showing its D&D roots by having two of the biggest villains in the show based off of D&D creatures. Season 1 was the Demogorgon, which is a straight-up creature from D&D, and then the Shadow creature that lasted the whole first 3 seasons, that's actually based off of a Mind Flayer. And In recent years, there's been another boom in D&D players thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic that began in 2020. Sales jumped 33% for Wizards of the Coast of all of its D&D products. D&D seems like a good option to many. No limitations, no restraints, and you just got to hang out with your friends. What could go wrong? Well, COVID made it very difficult to see your friends in person, so websites and apps such as Discord, Roll20, Hero Forge, Tabletop Simulator, they became huge tools for D&D players. D&D Beyond, an online library of all the different rulebooks and monster manuals, lore, character sheets, was flooded with new accounts. YouTube channels such as Critical Role and Dimension 20 blew up despite their previous popularity. Critical Role gained so much support that they even started a Kickstarter to turn their first D&D campaign into an animated series. That Kickstarter made over $11.3 million in the first 45 days of it being up. All of that to fund one full 10-episode season that's on Amazon Prime Video. So for anybody wanting to get into D&D, D&D Beyond is great, free tools, they give you everything you need to get started. I'd also recommend watching Critical Role or Dimension 20 to get an understanding of how the game works and how it flows. But besides that, just get a couple of your friends together. They might think it's weird. Screw them. They'll have a blast once they do it. And I know you will too.
Yeah, man, you can do this too. You go be the hero of your own D&D game. It's great.
Kyle, come on down. I'm sure people are going to have lots of questions. By the way, Kyle also has his photography featured in the Bent Pine Journal. The Bent Pine Journal is Central Lakes College's art and literary publication that comes out once a year. It's an award-winning publication, and it just came out yesterday. And Kyle has some really great photography from downtown Brainerd. So he's not just a
I guess one thing quick to clear up, when he says fantasy games in the cafeteria, it's Magic the Gathering that I referenced. It's just a card game. It's a lot easier to play than D&D when you're just wherever. So, but yeah, if anybody has any questions.
I got okay. Two, it's funny that you're about D&D because Josh Hammer, fellow alumni, is watching the live stream because he couldn't get out of D&D right now. Get together, Josh. Yeah, Josh. And then, what's your favorite class to play as when you're not DMing?
I actually haven't DM'd yet. I'm trying to write a campaign that Justin is hopefully going to be a part of if I ever finish it.
Yeah, finish it.
I guess as of right now, probably Druid, just because that's the one that I've played the longest. But I do have a Wizard Artificer multi-class that I really want to play. I just don't have a game to play it in yet.
So your pacing was probably the best part of that whole film. What was the inspiration behind the pacing?
That's just how fast I read the script when I was recording myself.
No, I'm talking about
like talking about the breathers and stuff.
Yeah, the breathers. Like it was so good.
Yeah, I guess there really wasn't a reason behind any of it. Besides, I wanted to just show the full length of some of the movie clips and that cartoon clip and stuff. Besides that, it just seemed to me like that's what just kind of fit, so I just kind of went with it. Justin?
Hey, so when are we watching Mazes and Monsters, and can I bring popcorn?
Whenever I don't have baseball, so I guess next 2 days or Sunday, and yes.
How did you find that clip? Because that I've never heard or seen of that. Like,
see, I had heard of it loosely in a video, more specifically about just the Satanic Panic. Okay. But Justin, when I was looking for YouTube videos to look for clips and just kind of gather information on it, he showed me a video that they talked more about that and the Darkest Dungeons I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, Darkest Dungeons.
That was also another spin-off kind of like D&D hate movie from around the same time. So, anything?
Do you think you want to take your career and move towards sports or to some of the gaming industry?
Either, I guess. For me, it's anything sports or outdoors or gaming related, because those are kind of the three main areas that I have interest in. Yeah.
What was your favorite part to work on during this project?
Probably doing the green screen stuff, which I thought I was going to hate because I hate being in front of the camera, and then I hate listening to myself edit because I have like this little bit of a lisp that I never noticed before until I started editing myself, and it's like I can't not hear it anymore. But yeah, just doing the green screen work is fun, and now I have a bunch of other bloopers and stuff of me doing stupid stuff in front of it to mess around with. So.
Any other questions for Kyle? All right, thank you, Kyle. So when the assignment came out in this class for students to work on their capstone projects, I suggested that they could create a documentary or drama if they wanted, but they'd have to create it from scratch. And so we talked about the research that goes into creating a documentary. You have to learn a lot about your subject and then figure out where the story is in there. And if you're going to do an original drama piece, you have to have that idea too and craft it into a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And so each of these filmmakers has, sort of crossed that Rubicon. They figured out what their story was that they were going to tell and how they were going to tell it. And they all come out in such different ways. It's really fun to see the creativity. Our next film is by Jay Petrie. And Jay came to this program through the PSEO, the Post-Secondary Enrollment Options Program. He's a graduate of Brainerd High School. And I really can't go without mentioning that we have some Brainerd High School students here tonight, including the host of Barrett Talks. If you haven't heard about the YouTube sensation, you should check it out. Barrett Rizak is here. He's a soon-to-be famous YouTube influencer. And he's in the videography program at Brainerd, where Jay not really got his start, but certainly advanced his skills. So without further ado, let's roll Jay's movies.
Yeah, it took us like 8 tries. Took us about 50 tries.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. I've been an avid consumer and wannabe creator of content ever since I was a kid. This was back in Minecraft's first peak. It was also when I was only allowed 1 hour of tablet time a day. It kind of goes without saying that McDonald's...
Yeah, it took us like 8 tries. So it took us about 50 tries.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. I've been an avid consumer and wannabe creator of content ever since I was a kid. This was back in Minecraft's first peak. It was also when I was only allowed 1 hour of tablet time a day, and I wasn't allowed to keep it in my room at night. As I progressed through middle and into high school, I thought, as a lot of kids like me did, that all it would take to get 1 million subscribers and be popular on the internet like those other guys was a screen recorder with a built-in iPad mic.
Yeah, it doesn't sound great.
I discovered TV productions in high school, and I quickly learned to love it as I realized that making cool videos in an easy class was exactly what I wanted. High school turned into college, and the rest is history. that is where this video was supposed to end. This short story I wrote when I was a small child is what I believe to be my first real creative pursuit. It's terrible and not very interesting, and not much has changed. But if 7-year-old me makes it any more apparent, perseverance is what got me this far, and it's going to keep carrying me further.
It kind of goes without saying that McDonald's is one of the most globally recognized brands in the world, full stop. But a lot of the story of how they got to that point is left up for the reader to decide. A lot of it's explained away with corporate buzzwords like innovation and franchising, and there's not really any story there. You can't seem to go anywhere without running into a McDonald's or two. Why is that? How has this burger chain become the symbol of America? How is it that I will one try hundreds of tiny ones? Over the past 5 years, I've tried to answer several of these questions. This is a story that I don't think was ever meant to see the light of day, but I think someone's got to tell it.
My parents finished building their house a few years ago. The process, from start to finish, took about 5 years. That seems pretty reasonable until you realize that it totally isn't. It seems like it should be pretty speedrunnable, even in the face of things like the weather. No. After all you really need to do is find and buy a lot, and oh wait, you've already hit a wall. Not really, because you wouldn't have any walls built yet, but you get it. Why can't you live as destiny anymore? Oh right, because everyone else got there first. Except it's not everyone that got there first. It's Ronald McDonald. Okay, I get it. Let's talk about how we got to this point then. Like I said, nowadays you can't just walk outside and go, yeah, I'll take this one, when you want to buy some land. There's far too much bureaucracy in the way. I was looking into places where that isn't the case, as it seemed like everywhere I looked, the same shadowy entity owned it, and no one seemed to want to tell me who that was. Normal methods of finding out this information went nowhere, so I had to dig deeper. I walked into a storage room and find out what the deal is with this extremely minor issue. And what I found upends everything you think you know about the world. I couldn't believe it. How could this be? The cause of all of my completely avoidable problems is some burger chain? Despite sneaking onto government property to steal totally publicly accessible documents, I still wasn't satisfied. I couldn't go any further lengths to find out if this was really true. I got in touch with McDonald's corporate to see if they would give me any more information. No response. I brought the issue to my network of elite spies and hackers to see if they could help me out. Hey there, got a second? Little did I know just how much of a help one phone call could be.
What? Oh yeah, that's totally us, duh.
I was put into contact with the McDonald's corporate executive. To protect their identity and job, I can't show you their name or face.
Our strategy was to treat real life like a Monopoly game. The strategy there, of course, is to buy everything you land on. And what we landed on everything. Obviously, you can't build McDonald's everywhere. No one could live there and support them. So then we said, why don't we just lease land until people don't need it anymore? Then they can build houses and stuff onto it, and then we get people into our stores. So that's the secret. We own everything, so we can lease it back a lifetime at a time. It's like an infinite money machine.
So there we have it. Corporate knows and treats it like it was obvious. I had a story. I took to the internet to present my case. The world had to know this. No one cared. Is that it then? Did I just lose? Did I dedicate 5 years of my life for this to not? I can't have that. Not after all this. So, here's my last hurrah. This video is the culmination of 5 years of my life, searching for answers to questions I didn't even know I had, finding out a truth that was never meant to be found, and the story of how ultimately no one cared. Do with this information what you must, but whatever you do, don't let it go to waste.
Well, see, here's our theory with that. If we give people more than one fry, then they'll keep coming back to us, because they'll pay for one fry and get 100 fries. Smart thinking.
Please come up, Jay.
You'll notice I'm about as red as the McDonald's color. I edited that. Hi.
Hi.
Yes.
What kind of precautions did you have to take infiltrating Big McDonald's?
I didn't infiltrate Big McDonald's. I contacted my bestie. I don't know if you saw it on the phone, but the contact was bestie. I did just call them, and they just said, "Hey, here you go. Just meet in this dark alley at 3:26 p.m. and they'll figure it out." Either one of you again.
So what made you choose McDonald's? I mean, there was Disney, there was Amazon. So why that corporation?
There's one bit of context behind that, and it's I was watching YouTube and I heard a line that said, McDonald's owns 80. That's what the big, huge Star Wars text at the end is explaining that. But McDonald's owns 80% of their stores, and then they just franchise them out. So I said, we're just going to get rid of that last part and say they own 80%. And then that's what happened.
Two-part question. One, did McDonald's pay you for this? Because I'm getting a little hungry in McDonald's.
I gave them $11 to make that video. That was the opening cutscene.
But they gave you $1,000, so I got it. Thank you. And then part two, your editing was fantastic. What was the storyboarding like for all that?
I didn't.
Oh my god. Scripts?
My script is a text document on my desktop, and then I read that in a voiceover booth, and I edited into that. I don't. You know that my text documents they work for me. Yes, I make them in Notepad, and I don't put them on Google Docs, and you get annoyed by it, and I'm sorry, but it works for me.
Could you imagine if you organized that? sorry, came to my head. I'm done with questions for today.
I've been doing this for 25 years and I've never storyboarded, so I'm with you.
Yeah. You organize that too. Nobody's safe. Do you have a favorite part working on this film?
I really appreciated how you'll notice that the weather gag exists. That was not planned. That was supposed to be a nice day, and then it snowed. That was recorded out of the trunk of my car with a blanket over the windy part, and then the blanket fell off, and then I just said, whatever, we're going to roll with it. And the wind gag happened, and then the 3 weeks after that, I was waiting for a nice day so I could re-record that, and it never happened. So that's why that's like that. That was really awesome. As far as a serious answer, I think I had the most fun with the very beginning part, because that was when I didn't hate looking at myself on camera.
saw that, I was like reminded by one YouTube video that I saw, and someone like vandalized one of the words of "treat a friend, heck treat them all," and it just said "eat a friend, heck eat them all."
I'm shaking still because I don't talk in front of people. So I would appreciate the opportunity to run away.
That dry sense of humor you have it all the time at school. You make me laugh, and then you put it the exact same thing in that movie. That movie is you.
I did not intend for that, but obviously it happens, and I just go, yeah, we're gonna write that thing in Comic Sans, and yes, I did hit enter to make the T on the bottom line because I thought it would be funnier. Like, it's a lot of those dumb things that take.
You also my favorite detail is you sent the email to McCorporate at
I heard somebody mention behind me the Our Dumb World. I showed that video to my grandma, and that's the only thing that she meant. She had to rewatch it. The first thing she saw was the Our Dumb World book, and she made me like sit up in the back because obviously, like, yeah, it's a cheap joke, and it says dumb, and that means it's funny. There's a lot of ha-ha moments like that that I did put in there. It makes it more sarcastic, and I like it that way. Yes.
So then, what do you? Everyone keeps asking the career question, but what are you looking to do? I know.
I was really hoping I could get away with that one.
We had this discussion about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you would know then that the answer to this is most likely I would like esports related because that's just what I do in my free time. As far as first career hopes, that's obviously not normally the case, is your dream job, but we hope.
So,
dream.
Follow-up question, have you done anything about it since we talked?
Not technically.
Jeez.
I am in the middle of another edit for one of my friends for something unrelated, but as far as emailing people, no.
Perfect.
Not perfect, but it is an answer.
Yeah, it was an answer.
Sorry to bash your hopes there.
But with esports, is there anything in particular you're looking at, or just anything?
No, editing would be great. Playing would be better, but I'm not good. So. It obviously fell through 5 years ago and never really let go.
All right, well, thank you, Jay. Somebody pointed out Jay's editing skills, but he's also a writer, and it's one thing to sort of be irreverent and snarky in real life. It's another thing to be able to bring it to the screen. Jay really has done that well. I mean, it's a skill. So it's something fun. Our next filmmaker is Justin. And Justin hails from the Crosby area. And I mentioned earlier that Kyle had some photos published in the Bent Pine Journal. And Justin also had work published in the Bent Pine. And Justin served on the committee of students that curates the Bent Pine Journal. And he's a multi-talented artist. And he brings something interesting to the screen for us, too, that I think you'll enjoy. As I said, students could do a documentary or some sort of drama if they wanted to write something and produce it from scratch and hire actors and get them to do it. And when Mark and I talked about this, he said, you know, most of the students choose a documentary because they think it's going to be easier than dealing with actors. And it might or might not be. I think when you get into doing the documentary, you have all the research, and it's just as much, if not more, work. But Justin chose a different path. And when we sat with the beginning of this assignment, everybody came in and made a pitch for their project. And the other members of the cohort would listen to the pitches and say, hey, that's a doable idea, because everybody came up with 3 pitches. And people say, I think that's your most doable idea. This one is really good, but it's going to be impossible to shoot. Or there's not enough time to make that show. But you should keep that show, right? Everybody kind of heard that from their peers. And then some people had to change their project after they had started shooting or after they had started writing because they figured out the idea they had gone with wasn't going to work. But Justin had this idea from the beginning. He came in with his 3 pitches. It was clear the one he wanted to do the most. Everybody listened to it. Everybody was on board with Justin's pitch for this film. And I think you'll enjoy it.
When you make a movie, before you make a movie, it sounds like a terribly fun idea. Wouldn't it be fun if we made a movie? And then you start making a movie.
I have always wanted to make movies. Didn't care what kind, didn't care how big. All I knew was I just wanted to make movies. Too bad nobody tells little idiot kids how difficult it is to make a movie. Do you know how long it took me to realize that only having a phone as a camera wasn't a good idea? Seriously though, I look back at this stuff and I wonder, what is the point? Why do I even bother trying when I'm not even sure if I'm going to get good or not? What's the point of me staying up past 3 a.m. writing scripts and getting storyboards down when in 2 years, I'm just going to hate this stuff? And then a shot like this happens, where I'm able to look at my work now and compare it to those old videos I made in home with my friends. I can compare it to the home movies I made with my sisters. I can look at all of that. And the difference is night and day. And then I remember the reason that I started doing this. It's failure over and over and over again. But eventually, you come up with something that you're proud of. And yeah, a lot of it is going to be bad. And a lot of it is going to be really, really hard. But at the end of the day, this is what we find fun.
It's Dan, right?
Danny, actually.
Yeah, I'm not calling you that.
Yeah, I'll go into work, make the coffee, get the thumb drive, get out of there.
You missed a few steps, but that's pretty much it. Put a little bit of this in each one of their coffees. One should be more than enough to knock them out. Give it a couple seconds, grab your thumb drive, and bam, you're out of there. Look, I know you're worried. And if you want out, fine. But think of how much harm your company's going to be doing if they manufacture the drug on that thumb drive. They're going to be hurting a lot more people than some unpaid intern.
Yeah, I can do this.
Gentlemen, as you know, today is a very big day for our company as we've begun the successful production of our latest pharmaceutical drug, Zoxy4. Oh, thank you. Actually, Dave, I was thinking, maybe you could run down to the vending machine and grab me like a cold brew or a tea or something like that. Here's that.
Okay.
Dave, what's going on here? What the hell is going on, Dave? I'm calling security unless you explain what's going on right now. You know, I have to hand it to you, Dave. I didn't think you'd be the type to pull something like this. Gotta say, I'm impressed.
My name's Dan.
Hi. First of all, I just want to thank everyone involved in this production. Evan, Chelsea, my sister, Paul, Zach, Kyle, my mom for letting me borrow her car so that I could get to wherever I needed to go, the school so that I could make this, all that, everyone involved. Just thank you so much. It means a lot to me. I like Kieran said, I first made a version of that when I was in high school as like my final project, and it was really bad. So I wanted to remake it, and it's less bad now. So I'm okay with that. I am perfectly okay with that. Yeah, I can take questions now. What's up?
What was your favorite part about working on this project the second time now?
My favorite part was probably editing it. It was just a lot of fun. I loved doing the little VHS or VCR graphics. That was. I love that aesthetic. I grew up watching VCR movies because we just had a crap ton. So I love being able to figure out how to do that. That was a lot of fun. And getting to just hang out with my friends and shoot another movie like that, it was so much fun.
So when you say it was bad and you made it as less bad, where do you see your biggest improvements?
I mentioned it in that little autobiography, but for one, I didn't record it on a phone. I had a microphone, and I actually used lighting in this. And I at this point, I have a way better grasp of editing, and I'm pretty sure the original one I didn't even edit it. It was another friend of mine that did it, and I mean he's talented in his own right. But just overall, I look back on it and I just kind of have to laugh at it because I just think it's kind of embarrassing.
I noticed you used a lot of sound effects throughout. How much time did you spend on the sound portion?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you noticed that. That took probably a majority of the time. Was just finding whatever like stock sound effects I could, and also I think I think it kind of made it a lot more fun to watch when it actually did have all of those sound effects, especially like the one where he throws the can and it hits me. And hey, I bruised for this production. Okay.
Justin, you know, when you were putting your premise together, one of the things you talked about other filmmakers that you hope to emulate, and some techniques that you were able to incorporate in this film. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, okay. So I absolutely adore Edgar Wright.
That felt very Scott Pilgrim-ish.
Oh my, thank you so much. That is the biggest compliment I've ever gotten. I love all of his stuff. I love the way he edits his movies. I love the use of the snap zooms and the whip pans. I love all of that. So I was really trying hard to get that. And you can ask Kyle, the one time I actually used the whip pan, it took us like 17 takes, and I still don't think that you know, you give me like 2 years to do this, I still don't think I'll have one that I'm happy with. But for what it is, I've never been able to say this about anything I've ever made, but I'm genuinely proud of this.
That's awesome. So then to clarify, the shot where they throw the can at you, that's not an edit. That's not two shots spliced together. That's one shot.
Okay, the original idea was it was going to be one shot, but we couldn't quite get it, so I had to splice two shots.
Gotcha, okay. Looks like one shot, though.
Thanks.
When did you decide to put, I love the chapter style that you used. Was that all along? Were you going to do it in individual chapters like that?
I think that was the game plan. I think that was. I never wrote it down in my script, but in my head I broke it up into chunks, and then
I like that because it gets rid of the transitions that it always takes to get people from point A to point B, and I think it moves it a lot faster.
Yeah, and oh gosh, I just watched one of his movies, and I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he directed this movie called Dead Man, and it's my friend Ian recommended it to me, and it's such a great movie, and it has these fade to black transitions between like every other scene, and it's a little distracting at first, but it really sets the tone for it, and I didn't even realize that was something I was emulating there. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same, but it's kind of similar.
So actors can be hard, and Bradley Cooper can direct and act. But what was it like dealing with your actors?
Well, the one of them was my sister, so that was difficult. Chelsea, I'm sorry. I know you're watching this. It wasn't hard because I've known most of these people my whole life. I mean, Evan, who played Danny, I've known him since high school, and he's a good actor.
Yeah, he's great.
Paul and Zach, which are the two guys that got conked out, they're just my D&D friends. That's not all they are, but they're I play D&D with them every other weekend. But they're good friends of mine, and I just on a whim said, "Hey, I need extras, and I'm running out of time. Oh God, please help me!" And they, without question, said, "Yeah, where do you need us?" And I'm eternally grateful for that. Even though we never clarified who was giving Paul a ride, so that was awkward. But yeah, no, I did a lot of theater in school, so it was really easy to tell people, like, okay, this is what I want, this is what I need. That last take was crap. Do it again. But it was a lot of fun, I would say. Hi, Kyle. What's up?
When's the sequel?
When do you want to write it?
Baseball's over.
Yeah, that's
All right, well, thank you. In the process of making these films, we encourage the students to, just start a spreadsheet to track everything that they need to get from idea to finished film, whether it's scheduling shoots or finding actors or different pieces of footage they need to shoot or find or props or anything. And I think we need to add to the sheet being sure that our actors have a rock. And then, I talked about how busy the students are, whether it's sports and jobs and family obligations and all the other classes they're taking here at college. The one thing I forgot to mention is almost everybody is gaming too. They need time to game, whether it's the electronic games or the or D&D, or board games, card games, whatever. They need time for that too, because it can't all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, as they say. Anyway, our final film tonight is from Mckenzie Cheney, and Mckenzie has the joy or the burden of being the only woman in this cohort.
I got brothers.
That's what she said. I have brothers, so I know how to deal with these fellas. But the nice thing about this cohort is they all work well together. They're supportive of each other. They're available to help shoot or hang a light or read a script or look at an edit and offer feedback. And it's all done in a great spirit of cooperation. And they know they're all building their art and they're building their skill and they're building their knowledge, and they've done it together and they express it individually. And Mckenzie comes from the Piers area, and she got her start, as I think she might tell you in her autobiography part. She shot the sporting events in high school and sort of found a love for shooting and editing. So let's roll it.
Like many videographers and filmmakers, my journey started when I was young. Friday movie nights and ventures to the movie theaters were a grand occasion for my family and me. Introduced to the cinematic world from a very young age, my sense of awe and wonder continually grew. Inspired by the adventures, stories, and emotions seen through these movies, I took to filming stories of my own. I utilized the technology I had around me, using my family's camcorder to record, a little iPod to edit, and eventually, my own camera. This inspiration fueled my passion to create pieces of art through storytelling, stories that wrap up the viewer in the moment and produce the same sense of awe I experienced. I'm a storyteller, a filmmaker, and producer. Now my mission is to create for a wider audience, providing rich visuals and stories, using tools and technology to create, inspire, and make an impact.
I remember texting just a message that says, "I'm an alcoholic. This is my cry for help." I grew up in southern Minnesota. My mom and my dad, and I have two brothers. I was stuck in the middle. I graduated from high school in 2003, and I went to Augustana College, which is down in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I got my nursing degree. While I was there, I met my husband. 2007, I graduated with my nursing degree and started my first job at St. Cloud Hospital in the intensive care unit. I was given the opportunity and encouraged to apply to be a flight nurse. This was my dream job. When the helicopter crews would come into the hospital and drop off a patient, I always thought they were so cool. They had their flight suits and they smelled like jet fuel, and I just thought they were incredible, and I just never thought I'd get the opportunity to be one of them. But I did. Meanwhile, while everybody is looking on from the outside, everything looks great, and I've got this really flashy, cool career, and my husband and I are married, and we're working on starting a family. It kind of looks like I got it all together. The problem is that I'm an alcoholic. And nobody knows this. Nobody knew this. I always found alcohol to be my solution. If I had a really, really crappy day, I go home and I drink. If I had a really great day, I go home and drink. If I can't sleep, I go home and drink. And it becomes these neurons and these pathways in your brain start to be like, that is my solution for everything. So time moves on. I'm still working as a nurse. I'm still at the St. Cloud Hospital. I have my first daughter. I remember after I had her, I kind of remember thinking, I'm a mom now. Like, this should change a person, right? Like, I'm a mom now, so I shouldn't go back to drinking the way that I was. So by this point, that I'm really starting to have red flags go up in my head. You know, I'm maybe doing those like secret Google searches that you do where you're like, do I have a problem with my drinking? But I'm not saying these words out loud to anybody. I'm still somewhere in my mind feeling like someday I'm gonna get a handle on this. Someday something's gonna happen and I'm gonna get a handle on this. That day was never coming. Things were just getting worse. My relationship with my husband was horrible. He resented me for drinking, so I resented him for resenting me, and I drank more. Like, it just kept going around and around. I was getting very suicidal. I had plans for what I had plans for how I would have my final day. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew how it was going to look like an accident. And that scared the life out of me because that's not who I am. It had all the power over me. I didn't have a choice anymore whether or not I wanted to pick up that bottle, but it was going to happen. On 10/10 of 2017, I woke up like any other day. I had the day off from work. I brought my daughters to daycare. That was scheduled. That was planned. I get back home from dropping the kids off from daycare. I remember going to the cabinet to do what came so natural to me and so habitual. And I grabbed a bottle and I took one little pull, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. Like, how am I ever gonna get out of this? I need help I don't even know what to do, but I know that there's this little ray of light inside of me that's finally starting to shine and just saying, like, you need help. Like, just call somebody, talk to somebody, you need help. Through the company that I worked for, through the helicopter service, there was a gentleman that was always available to us if we ever had, a tough patient care flight or if we ever needed to debrief about something. And so I remember sitting down on my couch grabbing his number, texting just a message that says, I'm an alcoholic, this is my cry for help. And just hovering my finger over that send button, knowing that as soon as I hit send, nothing's ever going to be the same. My husband, who's out in the field at this point, going about his day, I text him, I need help. He'd never heard those words from me. He came to the house, and I looked at him, and for the first time ever, I put those words together. I think I maybe, kind of, sort of, I think I maybe have a problem with alcohol. And I just saw this wave of relief come over him. Because up to that point, my alcoholism had been such an unspoken thing. So I reach out to my parents, I reach out to my closest friend. They had no idea that this had been going on, let alone for 10 years. I voluntarily admitted myself to the detox unit in St. Cloud. And that was a horrible experience, as it should be. It was exactly what it needed to be. It was a very safe place where I could withdraw, and they medically managed me. But it was horrible. I never want to go back there. I knew that for sure when I walked out of those doors. So I left detox and I went back home. And I was home for a week, and that was probably the scariest week of my life. Even in hindsight, looking back on it, I didn't have any tools. The things I needed to know, the resource, I didn't have any of it. I was just white knuckling it for a week. And so that day finally came a week later, where we got in the vehicle, my husband and my 2 daughters, and we drove to Center City, Minnesota, and they dropped me off at Hazelton. I had felt so isolated, so alone. The habits, the things that I was doing were so insane to me, but I couldn't stop them from happening. And now I'm in Hazelton, and I'm sitting in rooms with my peers, and every one of them is telling the exact same story. Different people, circumstances, places, and things, but everybody's story was the same thing. And that was so reassuring to me to learn that there was nothing unique about me. I am an alcoholic, they're an alcoholic, this is what alcoholics do, this is what addicts do. I could not go backwards, I could not go back to the life that I was living. I could not go back to my job. I needed to wipe my slate completely clean. And that was a hard pill to swallow, because it meant giving up the job that I loved. I knew it meant that there were many relationships in my life that were going to go away. And it meant that my life was never going to look the same. I went back to my little farm with me and my husband and my kids, and I gotta keep myself busy. So I went out to our shed, and I had these old dressers and this old kind of fireplace thing, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna wipe the 1980s off of it and give it a fresh coat of paint. And I did. And then I stood back and I looked at it, and I was just amazed at how these objects had a new purpose and had a new life. And then the people around me kind of looked at it and they thought, well, that's pretty cool. You should sell that. I thought, well, there we go. That'll keep me busy for a little while. So I started repurposing furniture. And I just found this incredibly beautiful correlation between these objects in my life and how there's so much power in restoration and knowing that we all deserve second chances and that we have an awesome God who is forgiving and faithful. So now it's 2022, and I've been sober for 4.5 years. And my days are filled with joy. My days are spent in my Bible. My days are spent present with my kids. My days are spent helping my husband on the farm, out in the field and out doing chores. My relationship with my husband has never been better. My relationship with my kids has never been better. Something that came to me a bit later in my recovery was an invitation to join a Bible study. I hold that Tuesday off on my calendar just to be with those women and sit around that table and share our walk with the Lord, with each other, and gather strength from each other and honesty, and just know that no matter what, we always have the Lord. One of the greatest ways that I have strengthened my recovery is by sharing my story. That's been something that has brought me the greatest amount of strength, is sharing my story with people and giving them hope that they too could have recovery. There's no other logical reason why I woke up the way I did that day. It is only by the grace of God that I woke up that day and He said, "Child, this is enough." And I feel like I'm finally walking in the path that He's laid before me.
All right, Mckenzie. I want to ask the first question.
Okay.
So, you know, I talked about how everybody pitched ideas, and Mckenzie had some ideas. She actually started on a different project, was well into shooting a different project when she dropped it and went with this. But to do a story like this that's sensitive, how did you get Laura's trust? Because that must have been crucial to getting that in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, because when I did have to pivot this story, Laura's was something I actually met her through my mom, and actually my friend Katie and their mom, Jen. And so with that, they did a market together. And so I met her, like, got to know her. I feel like if you would see her, she's a ball of energy and she's hilarious. And so for this story, I feel like, you know, it didn't capture how funny she is, but her redemption story. But what was your question?
Well, how did you get her trust? Was she just ready to spill this story? Did you? I mean, I wouldn't, if I had that story, I wouldn't be telling it to everybody, much less somebody with a camera.
Exactly, yeah. And I think being Laura's personality, the way it is, the way she has such a big heart, from after recovery, like she had mentioned, one thing that's helped her is sharing her story. And so, I mean, even meeting her when we had the vintage market, it was a bunch of ladies who got together. They had refurbished furniture, they put it out, and it was just a mission field for people to come in. And Laura would just stand there talking for an hour with somebody about life. And there were people with cancer who came in and were chatting with her. And just, she's from what I've known and knowing her, she's always been willing to share. And that was one thing going into this. I was nervous about it being such a sensitive story. especially with alcohol. But she was so willing. I mean, I messaged her and she was like, absolutely, let's do this. Got her on a phone call and I was like, well, can you like tell me your story just a little bit? And she went into full detail and I was like, this is great. Like, what else do I need? It's so good. And, you know, it is her story. And so it's just amazing to be able that she was willing to trust me with putting this together. And I mean, maybe someone has this question, but that was even the hardest thing is, how do I condense it? I mean, it was 14 minutes and our goal was like 5 to 7. We said there was no limit, but still I tried to goal myself a little shorter. And even so, it's just, her story is so wonderful that it was so hard to condense it and to pick out like what pieces do I keep, what pieces go out because they are still important, but probably something that you would find out from talking to her in person, and hopefully if you do meet her you get to know. And so these are just the integral pieces of her story. So yeah.
So when you have to condense stuff, I feel like you usually have to cut out a part you really enjoy.
Yes.
Was there any part you had to cut that you really wish you could have thrown in there or made sense?
I kind of mentioned it, but her humor, she's hilarious, and she would just pop things in there. There are some things I'm like, oh, like I want to keep this, but then again, I feel like it's something that isn't just super, super important to keep in the story. But yeah, there were definitely things that she shared, and even some details more at Hazleton, which we could have dove on because she shared a lot that was super interesting to hear, and especially with the people. She kind of mentioned being with those people in that room, realizing that she's not alone, and more of that, just being in that space, because I think, you know, even for her to admit herself to a recovery unit is incredible in itself, and that she was willing to go and then to find these people that's like, I'm not alone in this. I'm not crazy. Like, this is real and this is happening with others. And so I think that was a chunk that if I could have kept in, that would have been cool. So, yeah. Oh, either one. Katie?
Are you going to post a full version on YouTube?
This one I will. Because I have so much footage, I did talk to Laura about maybe doing a longer length one. I mean, it could even be a feature length thing, maybe, possibly. Because, I mean, you know, too, they are doing more. So Jen and Laura, they're doing consultations for decor, and so there's just more in her story that's super cool along the path that I could totally dive into. So, but yes.
Well, I was just gonna ask, because you had to switch partway through, like how much? Because there's a lot in there. How much time did you actually spend with her to get the B-roll, and then the interview? How long was the actual interview itself?
Yeah. I think if I actually put it all together, I was trying to think about this. I'd say 4 or 5 full days if I chunk everything together. I would just go, thankfully she lives only 20 minutes away. My other story was for my uncle and he lives 3 hours away. So this was a little easier to travel. I was like, nice. And so I would just go like mornings before work, or I had Mondays before school, just different times. And she's super available too, so that was awesome that she was willing and available, like 2 things that you really need to tell a story. And so, yeah, that was pretty awesome. But interview, I told her, I was like, oh, it'll take like, 30-ish minutes, and we had an hour-long interview. So, yeah.
Just a comment and question, kind of. Yeah. So at the end of it, when she's telling this, concluding the story, you have her a profile shot and then a back shot with the farm, paralleled in the uniform. Was that a planned thing that you did pre-plan, or did you find that in edit?
I found that in the edit, but I tend to do this thing I realized when I'm filming, where actually my friends would make fun of me because I would be at football games and I would like pan across like this because I was my own stabilizer, like that's all I had. And so naturally I just do that, and I was just going back and forth, and then I realized like, actually I have this like side profile and this side profile. It'd be cool to match them together to get like a before and after, and so.
Yeah, it was really slick.
Thank you. Any other questions?
What's the biggest misconception about alcoholism?
Ooh.
Yeah, in your
Okay. I didn't experience. Yeah. I don't know if I could even. You know what? I'll say this. Biggest misconception for me going into it, that as a person viewing her life and her story, is just how secretive it can be. And I think we know that with a lot of things can be really secretive, but you see movies where like the person comes in and they're thrashing bottles around, or different scenes, which most of them very true. But for Laura, I mean, actually, what was a part of her interview, and she'd be more than willing to share, so I will say it, but she would hide bottles in the closet, in the cabinet, different places. Like, only person that knew was her husband, and they didn't even talk about it. And so just like she said, she would, plan her kids' nap times and drinking around each other. And then when they were dropped off at school, like she said she was smart about it. And that's the thing, it was secretive and it was smart. And so that's one thing I didn't realize is just, how secretive it could be. So, yeah.
I'll give you a compliment. The best thing I could say is that I watched that movie and I didn't, like I usually do, I didn't try to critique it while I was watching it. I just followed the story from beginning to end. And that I know when that works, that it works.
Thank you. That's the hardest part. Even today, when I was like finally submitting it, I was like, man, I've been looking at this way too long. I feel like, not that I don't like her story, I don't like my edit anymore. I'm like, does it even work? And then having that opinion is really great. So thank you for that compliment.
Well, thank you. Let's have a round of applause. This kind of brings us to the end of this year's film festival. But I do want to tell you a little story by way of thanking Brent, who handled the technology tonight, as he does for us all the time. This morning when I pulled up in the parking lot a little bit before 8, and I made the mistake of checking my school email on my phone, and there's an email from Hera Charlier, the president, saying, hey, I'm not sure if I can come in person to the film festival tonight, but I didn't see the link for the live stream. Could you send it to me? And I said, oh boy. Because when Brent and I had talked about this, we thought, well, we're not going to live stream it, because we're going to celebrate that we can all be in person, and this is great. And it is. It's so great to be in person. And as I was walking in, I'm like, that's probably not the right answer, because we spend an inordinate amount of time live streaming events for every department in the college and in the community. And, a couple weeks ago, we were out at Madden's. And last week, we were at the Arthritis. And so I thought, well, we might have to rethink this, but we're down here, and it's not necessarily set up for a live stream. And so I met Brent, and he said, yeah, somebody asked me for the link to the live stream too. I think you're right, we need to rethink that. And so we ran down here this morning before class and looked at what we had to work with, and whether we could get a signal out to the internet, and whether we could tap into the assets that are built into this room, but not built for our needs necessarily. And we didn't really we came up with some ideas, but not any solutions. And I went back and I emailed the president of the college, and I said, well, we're going to work on it. And after class today, we're going to work on it some more. And if we can mount a live stream, we will. And we did. And so hello to everyone who's watching, if anybody's still watching. I'm glad you were able to join us remotely. And I just want to thank Brent again. And please, as we wrap up here tonight, take some cookies and stay around and visit with the filmmakers. And thank you all again for coming. It's really been fun.